The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader and the author of the bill, Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, thank you for the debate today. I love being an American, and I've had an opportunity to travel and see some of the world and spend time with people from all over the globe. And sometimes I think to see your country best, you need to see it from the outside. When I look from a distance, I see a nation that is more open to new ideas, new ways of doing things, and more kinds of people than any other. We are a country founded on an idea, freedom. The freedom of ordinary people to choose their own destiny and define for themselves the kind of future they wish to have. No other nation in the world is like us. We do not come from one race, one religion, or creed. We come from all of them. We are the land of the free because so many brave people have chosen to make this their home. We are a nation of people determined to make our own destiny, and immigration has determined our destiny from the very beginning. Unless you are indigenous or your ancestors were brought here against their will, you are the child of immigration. One of my family's many immigration stories starts in Norway in the 1890s. My great-grandparents, Mari and Anton Helgeson, traveled in steerage on a ship out of Oslo, seasick for days and weeks, rolling around on a deck covered in sawdust. They traveled by train from New York to Minnesota and found a place to live with relatives near Winger. Eventually, when they finally settled in, they were able to homestead a small dairy farm northwest of Bemidji, not far from where Representative Grossell is from. They worked hard. They lived a rustic, rugged life on a farm, making money on the side in lumber camps, on threshing crews, and working small jobs. This is the farm where my mother was raised and where I spent many happy childhood days. When this part of my family arrived, there was no immigration limits for them. Land was given to them for almost nothing, and they were undocumented because no documents were required for my family to come to America. Like my family, Minnesota's immigrants today, documented and undocumented, work very hard. Minnesota's overall workforce participation rate, which is the percentage of the adults who are of age to work, who are working or looking to work, is 69%, which puts Minnesota among the hardest working states in the nation. But Latino Minnesotans have a 74% participation rate, Liberian Minnesotans have a 75% workforce participation rate, and Vietnamese Minnesotans have a 77% workforce participation rate. In addition to working hard, immigrants are starting businesses and revitalizing Minnesota communities. Immigrant entrepreneurs generate over $500 million in business income and account for 6% of the business owners in the Twin Cities metropolitan region. In Long Prairie, an influx of Spanish-speaking immigrants 20 years ago came to start to work in agriculture businesses, including large dairies. 10 years later, new businesses started to open up on Main Street. Today, the schools have higher enrollment, the population is growing, and contrary to many of the trends in small towns, a new hospital and wellness center recently opened. As Don Rasmussen, the longtime mayor, has said, when they do well, everyone in town benefits. Hard work, economic and community vitality, and safer communities overall are the benefits of new immigration to Minnesota. Whether documented or undocumented, immigrants in many ways are the most above average of all Minnesotans. We should feel fortunate that they have chosen to call Minnesota home. But getting to Minnesota and staying here within the legal complexity we have created is a huge burden. There is no line to stand in to get here. The fundamental flaw of our federal immigration laws is that the quotas for entry are too small to fill the need for workers. Our most recent economic forecast and almost every study to look at Minnesota's economy concludes that demographic changes make finding more workers essential for future economic growth. Immigrants now comprise 10% of our labor force, and that will continue to increase. But we will still be short of workers, and our need for them will not be met by our current immigration system. The current immigration system does not work for any of us. Congress set a numerical limit on immigration going back to the 1960s, and those limits were last updated 30 years ago. As a result, employers wish to hire immigrants wish to work, and our system imposes severe caps on how that supply can meet the demand. Even worse, the system for processing applications is severely constricted due to legal roadblocks and funding constraints. In addition to the restrictions, the immigration system is fiendishly complex and difficult to navigate. We have nearly endless numbers of immigrant categories and statuses. Asylum seekers, refugees, family members, migrant workers, skilled workers are a few of the broad categories with dozens of subcategories underneath. The courts have routinely criticized the immigration system, calling it second only to the Internal Revenue Code in complexity. So imagine navigating a legal system as complex as the tax code, but doing so in a foreign language, possibly with a limited education, possibly while facing severe economic deprivation or war or famine or threats of violence to your family. The severe limits and complexity of this system make immigration to our country, documented or undocumented, a path for only the most determined people. The penalty for our immigration system's failure is paid primarily by immigrants themselves. We have all seen the stories about child separations at our southern border and our government's inability to reunite parents and children. But under our current system, anyone can be arrested, detained, and deported by ICE if it believes that the individual does not have legal status. ICE does not need a warrant to take people into custody or to deport them. There is also no limit on how long ICE can detain an individual, and such detainees have no right to legal counsel. Immigrants face these dangers while they are working to navigate an exceptionally complex system, and I think Representative Hamilton spoke very powerfully about that. That doesn't even begin to describe midnight raids, arrests while children are being dropped at the bus stop, or mass deportations of whole communities. The immigration system is a maze, a labyrinth constructed on top of a minefield. Long-term detention, permanent ejection, family separation, and childhood trauma are the penalties for one wrong choice. We should all be ashamed that our nation conducts itself this way. And we should be glad that immigrants of such courage, resourcefulness, hope, and determination have found their way through this cruel system and arrived to add such vitality to our state. Offering a driver's license to undocumented Minnesotans will not change our federal immigration system, and no amount of hope and desire in this body will do so either. We do not have that power. But offering a driver's license will help the immigrants living and working in Minnesota and all Minnesotans by making our roads safer, our economy stronger, and our moral dignity greater. We've had a long discussion today about, we had a good discussion about amendments. I tried to accept as many as I reasonably could to accommodate concerns raised. Your concerns, I think, are important, and we tried to find the right balance in this bill. But to clear up any misconception, offering a driver's license to undocumented immigrants does not make Minnesota a sanctuary state. There is no protected class under the Human Rights Act. There is no special civil penalty for violating data practices. We've shortened up the expiration date for the driver's license. There are no special rights or privileges here. There is only a change in law to say that if you apply for a license and you can't prove your identity with a Minnesota citizenship document or immigration record, you can still get a license. That is all this does. Offering a driver's license to undocumented immigrants will not make illegal voting easier. You still must prove citizenship in order to get a license that doesn't say not for voting. That has not been done before this bill. It is a felony and highest priority for deportation to try and vote. And we have moved the marking to the front of the license, despite the fact that very many people, myself included, feel that that is harmful to the people who will hold that license. But on the other hand, offering a driver's license to undocumented immigrants will ensure public safety. Drivers will have to pass a test, and they will need to have insurance to be on the road. Drivers will have to provide identity documents that are acceptable to the Department of Public Safety. Drivers' data will be available to law enforcement for purposes of investigation, and drivers' identity will be immediately available when officers are making stops. That does not exist today. That is why, in part, so many people in law enforcement support this bill. Offering a driver's license will also improve our economy. I've already talked about the need for new workers and how immigrants can revitalize communities, and I think we all recognize that's true. Immigrants in many ways are the hardest working Minnesotans, and that is why so many people in business and agriculture support this bill. Finally, offering a driver's license to undocumented immigrants will help protect human dignity. We've heard this already today. Imagine what kind of conditions you must be living in order to leave everything you know, take your children, and risk our immigration system so far from home. And what kind of people would take advantage of those people who've made that journey, who are working hard, providing us with so many benefits, and be unwilling to even give them the basic right to have a driver's license? What does that say about us? And I think that is why so many people in the religious community and communities around the state support this bill. We all have immigrant journeys in our family. The names on the voting board tell the story. Not just Zhang, Her, and Hassan, but Dreskowski, Zerwas, and Garofalo, or Carlson, Anderson, and Hansen, and Carlson. I know this is a difficult vote for many in this chamber, and I really particularly want to try to speak to people who did not come in here with your mind made up. We all have political considerations to weigh. We may have a base that doesn't support this vote. But I guess I would say that all of us from both sides at times, if we believe it is right, have some room to differ from the base of our political party. We can have a conversation about why we voted a certain way, what it means to us, and we can come back and legislate and be just as conservative or just as liberal as we want to be later on. There is space on some matters to vote for this bill today. And members, I would ask you to consider whether you have, if it's in your heart, whether you think that you can do it politically. I think some of you can. Finally, to those who are gathered outside this chamber and to immigrants all over Minnesota, I want to say that your journey is our journey. Your experience is our experience. Your Minnesota is our Minnesota. You are welcome here. You belong here. We need you here. We want you here. Thank you for making Minnesota your home. Madam Speaker, our immigration system does not serve us. Our driver's license rules harm us. Our dignity compels us to take action. This legislation is sensible and it is necessary, and the time has come to finally enact it into law. The need for this bill will not go away. The activists and organizers pursuing it will not go away. Our immigrants will not go away. We cannot wait in the dark for national leaders to light the way. We must see the light all around us. The torch of liberty that has guided millions upon millions of immigrants to this land for 500 years. The light of the North Star that has guided weary travelers to safety through countless generations. The light in the eyes of thousands of Minnesota children who depend on us for a better future. The pathway to a safer, more prosperous, and more humane Minnesota is lit for us. We simply have to follow that light. It leads us to rebirth and new vitality through new people, new hopes, new beliefs in our America. It is a vibrant, verdant future of growth and opportunity. Please vote green for that future, members. Please let us walk forward together.